Well, it's everyone's Matt Mrozik, and this will be the next set of projects on the bench after doing the Shadow Cat and the Colossus. So this is going to be a work in progress on 4 different kits, all for the same client. These are going to be 4 vinyl kits, 1/6 scale vinyl kits of 4 characters from Star Trek Next Generation. So we got 4 kits. These are from a company called Geometric, which is no longer around, but was owned and operated by my buddy George Stevenson, who now runs and owns Blackheart Model. So a while back, he had a company called Geometric, and they did a bunch of 1/6 scale vinyl kits and resin kits of different licensed properties. And unfortunately, due to recasting and things like that, he closed shop. So, but these are original kits from Geometric. And my client's actually looking for a bunch more. There's a whole lineup of these. So we got 3 kits. I got Data, I got Worf, William Riker, and LaForge. So I'm just going to do a quick overview of the kits, and then I'll show you prepping one of them because the process is the same on all. And I've only done 2 other vinyl kits, and it was for the same client, and those were for Star Trek Deep Space Nine. One was, oh gosh, what was their names? I forget. They were done a couple months ago. So he's having me do a whole set of these. One thing I do have to do for these, I have to 3D print some bases because there's no bases for these guys, and he wants a base. So I'll do some research and maybe just do a Star Trek logo or something. But we'll do the base. I think I'll do the same base for all of them. I'll keep the expense down for him and all that stuff. So I did a little prep on data already, or data. Sorry, data, not data. And I tell you what, these kits are really, really nice. The likeness on the sculpts is spot on. So I'm not sure who was doing the sculpting for George, but this sculpting is spot on. So there's Data's portrait. Here's Worf's portrait. Spot on. Here's Riker's portrait. Now this one may be a little off. I think once I get paint on it, it'll look better. But it's right now it looks, this one maybe look just a tad off. And then we got LaForge, which looks spot on. So again, these are vinyl kits, which means they need some. You got to build them and do some prep work. So like I said, I started working on Data, and the first thing I did is I just kind of took out some area here in the arms where the arms plug in. And so I cleaned that up. I cleaned up the arms, and these plug in. They have a little lip right here, a key to receive to go in the arm socket. And the fit is perfect. I mean, it's almost like a snap together kit. So, and there's supposed to be a seam line there for the clothing, so all I gotta do is glue that on, and it fits perfectly. Same thing with the other arm. Now he's got a phaser in his hand, and it's a little interesting on how they decided to do that, but it's probably the easiest way. And this arm plugs in seamlessly. The phaser, he's got half the phaser in his hand, and the other front half is here. So yesterday I was slowly just kind of sanding this away because it's got to kind of plug in there. There's not a plug, but I'm going to slowly sand this down until it fits, and then I'll glue that on. And then right now his waist is a little tight, but with a little hair dryer and some heat, it'll fit on. And I don't know if I have to do any work on the seam. There is some bubbles I got to fill. They're hard to see, but they're there. The vinyl's thin and there's some bubbles, so I need to fill those in before I join these two. Otherwise, it'll be almost impossible to get that in. But the great thing about vinyl is that just with a hairdryer, it softens up really easily, and you can get things to fit. Now, on the last 2 vinyl kits I did, I'm going to do the same thing on these. I'm going to fill the legs. What I'll probably do on the way these are cut is they're all cut a little differently, which is kind of interesting. The engineering is a little different on all of them. So like Data, his head is sculpted to the torso, as well as Riker and LaForge, but Worf's head is separate for some reason. I'm not sure why they did that. Doesn't matter to me because more than like I prefer to have the head separately. It's just easier, less masking later. But back to this. So I got to get all them. I'll have to get them to sit flat right now. See, the vinyl's pretty flexible, even when it's not heated up. But like his foot doesn't sit flat. So I need to heat this up a little bit, kind of get the cool down in the spot. And then I'm going to put some rods down his leg. You don't need to put rods in here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put rods down his leg and up to the torso, so that when I put this on, I can fill the torso up to about here, and then from here down will be solid, and that'll be one piece, and there's no chance of that ever coming apart, and it gives it weight because they're really light. I thought about possibly gluing the arms on and then doing some filling there. I don't know if I need to do that. All depends on, like, so this being vinyl, like, you don't want to display these like in sunlight, direct sunlight or hot lights, because it will soften up and it'll warp. But yeah, so I'm gonna show you some cleanup on one and how to get things to fit. I think the hardest part on all these kits is going to be Wharf's. I'm not sure what the term is. I'm not a Trekkiest per se, but getting this piece to fit together correctly and seamed is going to be, I think, the hardest part, because it's a small piece, it's thin, and right now it doesn't look like it's lining up very well. So we'll see. But I'm going to kind of get things pushed to the side. Even though I got data kind of already started, I'll probably show you on Riker on how to get these things put together. So I'm going to backtrack again and just kind of, so I showed you data. Let's look at Wharf. So Wharf comes with this torso. The legs come in two pieces like this. So that's, again, kind of an engineer. Maybe because of the way he's posed, they decided to do that. But as you can see, they got all this excess vinyl right here, which is what you cut off. And then there's a lip right here, which keys into the torso. And then on this side of the legs, same thing. Cut all this extra vinyl off. There's the key. And then on this side, there's a little bit of a lip, which will key into this side of the leg. And again, what I'll do is I'll cut away a majority of this and a majority of that. So when I put them together, I can fill them and make them one piece. Gives them some weight, gives them a way to stand. And then he's got the two arms. Oh, I see why. Oh, I see how that works. So he's got part of his weapon molded into his hand. So I've got to, that's gonna be challenging, the way that works. So you have to glue this in. Okay, let's see how you do that. Same thing here. Excess vinyl, you cut that off. A little divot right there. I'm not sure it's supposed to be there or not. And then it's kind of like working with a garage kit. You got to cut things, get them to fit, but the sculpt on detail on these is unreal. I never realized that vinyl could be such a beautiful, retain so much detail. And we showed you the portrait earlier. So that's Worf. Riker's pretty simple. He just has a standing pose. Let me show you Worf's pose real quick again. This is my scatterbrain, but that's Worf. So the weapon has to be glued together in his hand and all seamed and fixed and everything. Here's Riker. He's pretty simple. He's just kind of standing there. Now, the interesting thing about this is his phaser is made out of metal, which is interesting. It's kind of cool. Looks like whoever owned this before did some painting on it or something, but we're going to strip that. And then let's look at LaForge. LaForge is a little more complicated. He's got some more pieces. So here's his pose. He's got his hand up to his visor, and he's got, looks like a tricorder in his hand. So this is kind of how it looks like out of the mold. It's kind of messy. But you cut this all off, trim it up, do some filling and stuff. Looks like this goes on the bottom of the tricorder. And then let me show you the instructions on how these are. They're pretty simple instructions. They just kind of show you what parts of the vinyl to cut off, what to leave. These have mold release on them because they're molded, so you want to wash them in soapy water. Before I do any gluing and stuff, I'll wash them. And this here's, you want to heat the parts in warm water or the hair dryer to reshape. Make sure you put the parts together. Trim excess as shown in diagram. Check parts for fit before gluing. Assemble as indicated diagram. Yeah, so saying to fill the legs with some weight to give it some weight and some balance. And then paint it, paint scheme. Now you're not supposed to use, I think it's enamels on vinyl for some reason. It doesn't play well. That's okay because these are acrylics and lacquers. Now, if I put lacquers right on the vinyl, there's a good chance it could melt because the vinyl is a type of plastic. But after you prime everything, you're okay to do so. But something about, I've heard that you're not supposed to use enamels on these guys. So, yeah, I'm just kind of jumping around again. Again, Riker has the 2 legs that go together with the torso. He's like this, him and Data. Data. Dang, yeah, I'm saying Data. I just watched Goonies the other day, so I got Data on my Data. Whatever. So anyway, and then he's pretty simple, just his hands. And like I said, LaForge is maybe has a few more pieces, but again, pretty simple pose. And that's it. So I'm gonna kind of get everything aside, reset, and we'll work on cleaning up maybe either Riker or LaForge. Okay, here's LaForge. And you need a couple tools, really. Pretty simple tools. I got a couple sand sticks, I got a file, I got my X-Acto knife, and I got my Dremel over here with just like a, not a sanding tip, it's a grinding tip. So a lot of guys recommend to warm up the vinyl before you trim anything. I don't like to do that because it actually cuts too easy, and the first few kits I did that, and I caused a little damage. So I just like to get a new blade that I have here. I gotta be real careful. And this is the part, you see this line right here? This is what we don't want. So I'm just gonna cut, kind of like when you do woodworking, I'm gonna leave a little extra on there. Now this is a little harder than, maybe because it's colored. It's got some dye in it, but it's a little harder to cut than Data was. So I try to leave a little extra on there. If you don't, just make sure you leave that lip on there, because that's your key. But it cuts pretty, you have a new blade, it cuts real easily. Just like that, okay? And then this goes to this arm. That's trash. Let's cut the excess off of this and see how they fit. Now this has a really small lip right here. It's going to key into the other part. So make sure you leave that on. So I got to get these parts, I got to get this arm together, and I have to get the legs together. See, start to go cutting that key a little bit. This is how I cut it. I'm sure maybe there's a better way, but you know, I'm a kind of a vinyl model newbie. Since it's kind of an odd shape, I'm just gonna cut a little bit at a time. Okay. Just like that. Look at this one little excess piece of around here that we're going to cut off. Like that. I'm going to cut this down pretty close. That's just from the molding process. Okay, and now this doesn't have to be pretty as long as it fits into the other part. Now I do have to, I'll have to do some alignment here. So I got to make sure that this, when this is together and on his body, it reaches up to his visor. So I'm going to sand this a little bit. Now vinyl is really hard to sand, but because it's plastic, but I use a sanding stick because it is slower and it takes off less material rather than just going at it with a grinder. So here I got to cut out this part. Now here is where I get the grinder. It's going to get a little loud, but I'm just going to grind this and then trim it. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so I go with the grinder like that, and then come in with some sandpaper. This is 180, I think, and just kind of clean it up. The grinder gets me pretty damn close to where I need to be, I think. I'm gonna start kind of test fitting. So I need to take off this excess right here. Yeah, so you just gotta kind of play. This is kind of like working on the garage kit. You gotta play with it, get things to fit. And then some of these, depending on how it fits, you gotta do some putty work to fill some seams and stuff. So now here, there's supposed to be a seam in the costume, so I may have to heat this up a little bit. So I'll show you on this piece, because this one little piece might take a while to get to fit. Okay, now we're pretty close. I think if I heat the elbow up, might be pretty close. I think I'm gonna come in here and stand a little bit. Right now I've got too much material up here. This is trimmed pretty, I don't think I can trim that anymore. Oh, I thought this guy would be an easier one. Maybe not. Riker would probably be easier because you don't have this bent arm. Here, let me heat this up a little bit. And it doesn't take long to heat these things up. It's pretty quick. See, that's it. Like, just a few seconds. Now this little piece is challenging to get a good fit. If I get to fit and then get to cool, I should maintain its shape pretty well. Looks like I almost had it. So right about there, that's pretty good. So I'll probably do is end up gluing that. I'll probably have to do a little bit of putty work. So that side fits pretty good. All right, so we're going to work on this for a little while to get that to fit better, but we're close. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and clean up all the pieces, kind of get all the trimming done, and then I'll work on fitting some of this, and I'll come back because this could take a while. Like, so I'm going to work on getting the legs cleaned up, get those fit together. Once I glue something together, I'll show you. Basically, just use super glue, and it glues like instantaneously. But yeah, we're going to do some trimming, and then we'll do some fitting, and I'll come back. Okay, so like here on LaForge's legs, I just trimmed up the excess vinyl. If I put it together, it fits really good, like right here and back here. It's pretty good. Give it a good squeeze. But there's a pretty significant gap in this crotch. So if I put a clamp on that down there so the crotch goes together, may need a little work. If I do that, I'm going to heat this up and see if we can't get it to fit together better. Now it's warm, soft. I can come here and hold this like that, and now we fit. Perfect. So I'm going to hold that together like this, let it cool. But now there's no gap in this crotch, and we fit really well up here. So just got to heat it up a little bit and kind of squeeze it together a little bit. And then once this cools, I'll put some glue on it, and I'm going to glue those together, and then I'll work on fitting. I'll clean up the torso and try to get that to fit. So I want to show you one thing I did here. So for his tricorder in his hand, it didn't fit very well. So what I did is I filled the hand with a 5-minute epoxy, and I hit it with a hair dryer, and I'm just holding the tricorder in his hand as the epoxy dries, and it'll fit nice and flat in there. So the epoxy will hold the hand where it is. I'm contemplating putting a magnet in the tricorder in the hand. We'll see. I may not have to do that now that I've done this, but the tricorder didn't fit in his hand initially. It was the fingers were closed too much, and also with the epoxy in there, as it warms up, it actually softens the vinyl a little bit. So I'm able to hold this into place and get it so it sits flat in his hand down at the bottom there. You can see that. So I'm going to hold this until the epoxy dries to a point where I can let go of it and it's not going to fall out. So that's one way I'm fitting this together, the tricorder in his hand before the fingers were closed too much. But now it wraps around really nicely. Fits really well. So we'll see. I'll either glue the tricorder in or add a magnet. We'll see. Maybe I'll just do a pin and a pin and glue, because there's no reason to take the tricorder out. There's nothing else to put in his hand. So yeah, I can feel the epoxy heating up as it cures in the hand, but this should work good. Okay, so I've got his torso fitting pretty good. It's heated up a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fill the legs. And I'm going to do it in a couple stages. I'm going to fill up to probably about the knees. I'm going to put some metal rods in there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, or actually I'll probably maybe fill up. I'll put metal rods down all the way down. And I'll just keep his legs. And he actually stands right now, so I don't have to worry about changing his stance. It's like he doesn't move at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I'm going to use Durham's water putty. So I used on the last guys. And it's just it's kind of like plaster repairs, but not. Use it for, it's like a wood consistency, but it dries hard, and it works pretty good. So I'm going to fill up to about maybe the thighs. I'm going to put some metal rods in there just to, I probably don't need to do that, but it just makes me feel warm and fuzzy to do it. So we're going to do that. They don't have to be super crazy heavy duty. I'm going to use probably maybe, well, let's do 1/8 inch. I'll put a couple rods in, and I'll maybe crisscross them a little bit, and then I'll put the torso in. I'll glue the torso on and fill the torso up a ways, and then I'll make him one solid piece. Now the challenge with this one, and I'll probably run these other ones, is I glue all those together. Like I've got this arm fitting really well. It helps if I heat this up a little bit, because these seams on the uniform really need to line up. I glued this together and it fits pretty good. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of I did a little bit of sanding here, but I think what I want to do is I want to make this arm, at least this arm, removable, because if I glue it on, it's going to be real hard to paint his face. So I don't think I want to glue this arm on until the very end. This arm, it fits really good also, and I can probably get away with, his hand is separate, which is nice, so it can, for skin tones. So I'll probably go ahead and glue this arm on. Yeah, everything fits really good. I need to heat this up just maybe just a little bit. I'll probably glue this arm on, and because most of the uniform goes this yellow color, this part goes black. Again, it's just looking at where I have to mask and stuff. I'm playing with getting him into one piece and then filling the torso up and making this basically like a solid piece, and then making the arms removable just for ease of painting. So that's like my thought process right now. It could change, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. So Durham's water putty is exactly what it is. It's a putty that you use water to mix with. Now let's check the hand. So the hand has dried, the epoxy's dried, and now the tricorder fits in there perfectly. I got to glue the little top on, and probably do some seam work and putty work on that to clean it up, but that's kind of what that's going to look like. So I'm going to go ahead and use some Durham's water putty. I'm going to take these metal rods, I'm going to sand them a little bit. This is 80 grit, and this will just give the putty something to stick to. Because if they're just smooth, they'll just pull right out. How long does it take to dry? Let's see how long it says to take to dry. So you're supposed to mix the 3 parts powder to 1 part water. And now you can make it a different consistency. You can make it really thick. You can make it really runny. Okay. So I got some of my mixing cups here. This stuff gets everywhere. It's kind of messy. I need a flathead screwdriver. I don't have right now. Let's see if we can just go with this. So I mix it up a little bit at a time. Got a little bit of water here. It doesn't take a lot of water for this stuff. So let's see. I wish I had a spoon. I don't have any spoons up here. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm gonna get some plastic spoons just so it's easier to get out of this container, because I said it's like super fine and it gets everywhere. So like I said, you see a little bit. I just put a little bit of water at a time and mix it up. And last time I had this big syringe that I used to kind of inject it so I can make sure I get it down everywhere that I need it. I'm going to mix it up so you don't have any lumps. You don't have any dry spots. And I make this a little thinner than I did last time so it can run down. And mix it away from me because I'm splattering everywhere. I want to get it on my clothes. I don't have my apron on right now. Let me get another spoon just to mix up more, because you think you got a lot of stuff in there, and as soon as you add water, it's not much at all. So it all depends on what you're doing with the stuff. If you're gonna, like, you can patch wood with it, you can patch drywall with it. It sands kind of like wood once it's dry. So sometimes they say mix it to like a peanut butter consistency. So right now I've got kind of like, like creamy peanut butter. But you see I put all that powder in and it just, can put a little more water in there. I think I want to pour this in. Okay. Let's try that. So when I did the last ones for this client, when I was going to mail, I was like, yeah, make sure you send me the boxes back. So, oh man, I threw the boxes away. These didn't have any boxes. Okay, so this is pretty kind of like, I don't know. What do you want to call this consistency? Actually, I'm going to put a little more water in it. I want to pour down in there. I'm not sure if it dries faster with less or more water. Use a stick to kind of get it to go down. And mix up a little more and use my syringe. It seems like it's starting to dry already. A little bit. And make sure you clean off any excess off your keys. Fill the syringe up, that way I can inject it. So I had someone ask me where I got these syringes. I got them off Amazon. I bought them a while ago and I was trying to learn spray chroming. I bought a whole set of syringes of different sizes for measuring. Okay. Okay, it's actually right where I wanted to go. So one thing is you gotta make sure you clean out your syringe before the stuff dries. So right now I've got it filled up to right about here. I'm just gonna kind of use this stick to make sure it goes down. I'd really like to get it in the toes because what I'll probably do is when I get the bases, I'll put a rod in the base or a magnet in the foot in the base. Really, as long as it's down to the heel, that's all that really matters. Yeah, but he's standing nice, which is what we want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for this to start to kick off, and then when it does, because right now it's the way I've got it mixed, the metal rods will just sink to the bottom. They don't want that. Clean off this excess. So for now, I'm going to wait, and then we'll see. And this will warm up as it dries. But I have nothing coming out of the steam that I glued, so that's good. That means I don't have any leaks or anything. All right, so we're just going to wait for a while for that to start kicking off. We'll come back. Okay, so what I did on the metal rods, I crimped some. I made some little, like I took these pliers, and I just made some little gashes in it like this, and I bent a hook in it, and I put them in the legs, and I just kind of have this file here to keep them kind of upright. They don't have to be pretty. That's not the point, but I want them pretty much centered. So when I go to pour in, when I glue the torso on and pour in more putty, they're just in the center and gives it the best support. So I need to let this sit for a while, and then I can glue on the torso and start filling that up a little bit. Okay. All right. So putty in the legs kicked off, and it's not 100% hard yet, but I went ahead and glued on the torso, just some super glue, kind of let the ooze out, kind of fill the gap. I got maybe a little bit of gap here. I got to do some putty work on, but that'll be later. So you can see here maybe you can see, I don't know, the brass rods are sticking up to about his chest height. Now I'm going to mix up some more of the water putty and use my syringe and fill it up to about just up to his armpit here. And then that's it for the putty. I thought about filling him up solid, but then I had to like block. It would take a couple steps. Blocking this off, filling with putty, letting that dry, and then, or vice versa. So I think the arm's going to keep separate, paint those, and then just glue them on really carefully at the end here. But this is what we're going to do for, again, we're just going to, same as before, mix up some putty. That's probably too much, but I'd rather have a little too much than not enough. This stuff's pretty cheap. I think this whole tub right here is like less than $10. I'm gonna mix it up a little thicker this time. I don't need it quite as runny because I don't need to get it down to the legs. It took a while for that first batch to kick off because there was quite a bit of water in there. But I did that on purpose so it would run down the legs. While I was waiting for that to kick off, I went ahead and put some Aves putty on the tricorder and let that dry, and I'm gonna sand that smooth. Hopefully that'll take care of the seam and the unevenness. I also worked on Riker's legs, got them kind of glued together. But I need to do some heating and get those to sit flat. I'm just gonna show you basically the prep on one of these kits, the forge here. It'll be the same on all the other ones, and then we'll work on the priming and stuff. We'll see what they look like, the primer. So today's goal, first day of this work in progress, is maybe kind of get the prep work on the forge and Riker done. Maybe I can get the prep work done on one more, but it's gonna take, since I got 4 of these. Last time I did 2, it took me about a week to do 2. So this is gonna be about a 2-week project, depending on how long it takes me to do print the bases and stuff. So for this, I'm gonna just spoon it in. It's a little thick. It cleans up easily with water before it dries. I'm not worried about making too big of a mess. Let's put a little bit at a time. Tap it down. Mix up a little bit more. This powder's so fine, it just gets everywhere when you first start stirring it. So this I'm mixing to like a thick peanut butter consistency. You want to mix it thoroughly. Don't want any dry spots in there. It's a balancing act, man. Just a little bit of water makes a huge difference as far as the consistency goes. All right, that's about right. I'm going to fill it up right to this lower armpit, and then once this guy dries, it's going to look pretty good. Okay, so there we go. A little water to clean this up. Make Actually, that key is really cleaned out because the fit of the arm is like perfect right now. We don't want anything interrupting that fit. A little bit of water here in the Q-tip. Alright. So now he's filled up to right here, right across the chest there. So once that dries, then that's about all I can do on this guy for now. I got both arms prepped and everything, and again the fit's pretty good, and it still allows me to heat up the top part if I need to get the arms to fit properly. But yeah, there we go. So we're gonna let that dry, and he'll be solid from here all the way down. Hopefully I have putty down here in the ankles. I'm hoping I do, because I want to put probably a rod up the leg so I can put it on the base. But there you go. So that's how you fill a vinyl kit. At least that's how I fill it. Other guys use plaster. I've seen guys, a few YouTube videos. Some guys use resin. The resin gets pretty hot as it cures. This does warm up, but it doesn't get hot. Like the legs are starting to warm up a little bit, but it doesn't get hot. So that's it for now. Probably when we come back, maybe we'll do some priming on this guy. All right, so I want to show you here on Riker's legs. Again, I'm bouncing around as far as my work in progress. So his legs were spread apart a little too far, and I'm looking at the photo on here on the box art. He's not even sitting flat on the photo, but I want one foot sitting flat. So I've got some tape around his legs here. So now his left foot sits flat. Now he's just up on his toe a little bit here, but he's much more stable. So I'm going to heat this up a little bit. Okay, so when I heated kind of his rear end, I felt the tension release. So that's where I was binding up. So I just heated up a little bit, and they'll come back out a little bit with the tape on there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fill these legs with the Durham putty. And then hopefully when I take the tape off, he'll stand if without the tape, but I like to have at least 1 foot completely flat. And if he's on this toe a little bit, it's no big deal. So I'm going to do that on the forward. I'm going to fill the legs, let that set off, put some rods in it, and hopefully the legs will be stable. Okay, so here we are so far today. We got a lot done. We got basically all the main assembly done. So right now, Riker's one piece. He's filled up to about here on the chest. I glued his arms on because it's easy to paint his skin tones and mask off his head and hands. Last thing I'm doing is I'm going to put a 1/16 inch brass rod into the phaser and then drill a hole into the side where it plugs in, just so there's more something for it to grip onto. Worf has been all glued together except for his head. I'm keeping that separate. He's a little messy looking right now because from doing the water putty, but that'll all clean up. Went ahead and glued his arms on. Oh, nope, I haven't glued this arm on. That's still loose because for his what's this thing called? It's on the back here. It's called since I'm not a Trekkie, I gotta look it up what this weapon is called. Batel? Hell, I don't know. His sword. This is actually easier than I thought it would. It took a while to get it cut out of the vinyl. It's actually solid, and I super glued it together, and super glue does a great job on vinyl. It must have melted a little bit because I've been able to sand on this and do all sorts of stuff without the glue joints coming loose. So it's glued here, here, and here. I kind of rounded off these edges a little bit. It's a little rough right now, but I'll probably do a light sanding on this before I prime it. It's flexible, but that's okay. But I left his arm unglued because the way this goes in, and it comes in like this. And I'm thinking I'm going to leave this arm loose to glue later, once I kind of get this all figured out. And I'll probably put a couple of small pins in here and pin it to his hand. But it actually lines up pretty damn good. I was worried, man. I thought this would take forever to put together, and it actually lines up pretty damn good. So yeah, that's looking good. So he's one piece, except for the arm. LaForge, I glued the arm on there to keep this hand separate for easier. This hand is still separate. This would have been a lot easier if they would have done here what they did. If they had done here, if they would have done here what they did here, just basically make the hand separate. Because if this hand was separate, I'd go ahead and glue the arm on, because it lines up very, very well. It goes right up to where it's supposed to on his visor. And everything fits very, I mean, I'd like to glue it on now, but just to avoid any risk of getting glue on the painted surface. But if I glue the arm on now, it'd be really hard to paint the face and his visor. I will have to do a little seam work here on the elbow because there's no seam in the uniform there. That's the only arm. I think this may be the only seam I have to fill. I got a few tiny little gaps. I got to fill one right here on Riker. Be pretty easy. As far as I can tell on Jordy, maybe a little one right there. I think the arms, I don't think I'll have to do any seaming on the arms. Knock on wood. Now Data, I don't want to keep saying Data. And I don't know why I say, because I love this, and I love the Next Generation. It was actually my favorite series. I've got him leaning forward. So what I did is I can't do it now because the putty's wet, but he wasn't standing up because his legs were not conforming to the right shape. So what I did is, I didn't film this, but I taped his feet down to where he would stand, heated it up, let it cool, and then I poured in the putty and waited for that to kick off for about 2 hours or so. And while that was drying, I waited for other stuff. Once I took the tape off, he didn't want to stand up. So what I'm doing is I put some more putty and I'm leaning him forward. And I try to put some putty in this arm. I have the other arm over here, the one that extends out. I filled this with putty, and I'm going to let that dry. And I'm hoping that gives me enough counterbalance forward that he wants to fall backwards. It's not the end of the world if he doesn't stand up by himself, because he will be pinned to a base, but it's just nice to have him. It's just more secure. So I'm leaning him forward as his putty dries to kind of try to get some weight towards the front here. So trying to get more weight towards the front of him. Hopefully that works. I don't think I need a lot to get him to stand, because he's like almost there. He just wants to lean over. So I'm going to call this work in progress and done, I think, because I got the main assembly done. It's a good long day. I got all the legs, everything's filled. I got maybe a little gap right here on Wharf I got to fill. Yeah, until I get primer on. Oh, I'm seeing a few little gaps. So I may do a little seam work here, a little gap filling with some aves on some of these, but I don't need to film that. As I just inspect these a little bit more. So I need to let everything dry overnight. Really good. Tomorrow I'll look at everything and I'll inspect for any seams or anything, and then I'll do some gap filling. But for now, this work in progress is done. Full day, a lot of progress. So moving along pretty good. So I didn't get this all in one day. I started over the weekend. I did some prep work on these, but for the most part, all this work was done in one day. So it's quite a bit. And part of that's because the kits just fit together really well. Really other than a little heating here and there to get things to go together, that fits very well on all this stuff. So minimal like seam filling and stuff, I think. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next one. Bye. Okay, well, I thought the work in progress was done, but I went ahead and glued Data's arm on, and he's standing now, so we're good. I put 2 little pins into Worf's, I just call it sword because I don't know how to say it. And now I can take that off and paint it accordingly, and then I don't have to worry about. So I'm gonna glue his arm on, I think. I don't know. It depends on how hard masking is, but there you go. And now you can see all 4 together. And Worf would be much taller if he wasn't crouching, but yeah, they look really good. So today was a long day. Got the major assembly done. Tomorrow I'll give everything a really good bath. Coat a primer. I found a couple of bubbles in data I got to fix. A couple of gaps here and there in the waist, but for the most part, I think it should be pretty minimum. But there you go. Looking good so far. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next one.